one thing I was happy with, and sorry for the spoilers, was that their story didn't just end. Like the assessor program wasn't just over. I was like, okay, so while we may not see them, we can believe that somewhere out there they're still, continuing
Right.
this. So I thought that was good, and it wasn't really like a sad finale. It wasn't like anybody died or anything like that. But so I thought it was a good close to what was a really, really good series.
Hello and welcome to another episode of It's a Streamable Life podcast with Brandon and Lauren. We are coming to you during the first week of September. August kind of just flew by out of nowhere, really.
Absolutely.
And as we gear up in this new month, it is officially kind of sort of the start, even though it's been happening, but it's kind of the start of the film season. We got multiple film festivals up and running. We had Sundance earlier this year, followed by South by Southwest, and then of course little ones here and there, but now the big ones are happening. We had Cannes already, right?
Yeah, that was earlier. Yeah.
So now we're into some sort of like some of the more American Western Hemisphere ones. Telluride. Did I say that right?
I think
Telluride?
it's Telluride.
Telluride.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, starts this weekend or next weekend.
That's coming up as well. And then we also have the Venice Film Festival going on. So Oscar buzz is already swirling. There's some big films are kind of leading the pack, as always, for award season. At Telluride, there was Nora, which sort of made buzz earlier this year. I think you had mentioned wanting to see that before, right?
Yeah, and that's when I saw it on here. Yeah, it sparked interest. And yeah, it's Sean Baker, who's kind of been slowly making his name in the industry with I think 2017 he had the Florida Project, and then Red Rocket, Tangerine.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. I think Red Rocket may have been his last one. But yeah, so now he's gone even bigger with this, and so we'll see how that does.
Yeah, and a lot of his films seem to center on sort of not just sex workers, but that sort of realm of like sort of other outlier citizens, whether it was Florida Project or Tangerine. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, he does it justice. He works well in that kind of area, and it helps because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's actually from Florida, which is where he based a lot of his stories and stuff. So it has some connection to it. So.
All right, yeah. And then there's Disclaimer, which is by Alfonso. Let me make sure I get his name right. I think Cuarón. Is that right?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I think it's
Alfonso Cuarón or Cuarón. And this is based on the novel of the same name by Renee Knight. Now, this is a series that's premiering at Venice, starring Cate Blanchett. It's coming to Apple TV later this year, so it's getting some big buzz just because of the caliber of people that are in it. And there was a quote from Alfonso saying, he doesn't really know how to film TV. He just knows how to do film. So the show is going to look amazing.
Right.
Yeah, it stars Cate Blanchett and Kevin Kline. So that's sort of a big deal. Then you have Emilia Perez, which sort of stirred things at Cannes, I believe, where they awarded the first transgender actress to get Best Actress. This movie stars Zoe Saldana, Selena Gomez, and then the trans actress's name. I want to make sure I get that right. But I think that's coming to Netflix eventually. Carla Sofia Garcon.
Okay.
And it also stars Edgar Ramirez. So I think it's sort of like a mystery kind of true crime, but there's sort of like senses of camp in it as well as melodrama. So it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, it's coming to Netflix later this year, which is a big pull for Netflix. They are trying to become sort of like this movie auteur because most of their films stink.
Hey, I mean, people will appreciate with that if they can do that, and I think that's actually kind of a good thing to pool some of these films to the platform, because unless you have an art cinema or something in your city, you're probably not going to be able to
Yeah,
see him.
you're not going to see these movies. Yeah.
Right.
Then we have The Piano Lesson, which is another one of August Wilson's plays that Denzel Washington is bringing to the screen. Actually, sort of like his whole family's involved.
I was just about
Pauletta,
to say that. It's like a
yeah,
family affair.
yeah. I think Pauletta is a producer. Denzel's a producer. His son John stars in it. His daughter Olivia is in it, and then his younger son Malcolm is directing it. I believe their other daughter helped write the script or something. So it's a family affair.
That's cool.
But people are buzzing about Danielle Deadweiler's performance in this movie, saying it's another tour de force, which she should have won or should have been nominated at least for Till.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
And I'm also hearing a lot of things about Nickel Boys, which is based on the Colson Whitehead novel. I've heard great things about that from the young director. I'm not sure what the movie's about, but they're already saying that it's a standout this year. Ramel Ross.
I think it's about a reform school.
Okay.
And I know the book. I didn't even know, this is the first time hearing that was coming out as a movie. So, but it's about a reform school with, where it's like very abusive. So I think that's the story it's telling. So.
Yeah. And it looks like Anjanou Ellis Taylor is again in this film as well. So she's having quite a year.
Staying busy.
She has Exhibiting Forgiveness, which comes out this fall. She had The Supremes, All You Can Eat at Earl's Buffet. Or I messed that up, but yeah. She was in The Deliverance, which we won't talk about.
Right.
And now she's in this. So she's always been a great actress, but she's finally getting consistent work. And she was in last year's Origin. So she stays busy. And then, of course, Jason Reitman's Saturday Night is causing a stir. The film that sort of captures a moment in the first season of Saturday Night Live. The cast is expansive. So that should be a critic darling as well as a commercial darling as well.
Yeah. Before we move on, I just want to correct. Sean Baker is not from Florida. He is from New Jersey.
Probably okay.
More than 1,000 miles apart from one another.
Well, now we know we want to make sure we're not giving misinformation on this podcast.
Right, exactly.
All right, then over at the Venice Film Festival, some of the big names are Baby Girl, starring Nicole Kidman. It's supposed to be an erotic thriller.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this. Like you said, it's Nicole Kidman. It's Harris Dickinson, who's kind of slowly becoming a new, like, what's the word? Kind of like, not lover boy. What is that word that I'm thinking of? Like kind of like in the realm of like Austin Butler and these type of guys. And he can act. He was good. He was in Beach Rats a while ago, which is 2017, which is a really good movie. I think I remember him being in The Iron Claw. But anyways, back to this one. It tells the story of a CEO, Nicole Kidman, and an intern, Harris Dickinson, and they kind of get together, and it's supposed to be this kind of steamy office affair. And so.
And then, of course, we have Maria, which finds Angelina Jolie back on screen as Maria Callas, who was a famous opera singer. They're saying this is like one of her greatest performances, which she doesn't really act as often as she did. I think half of it is she's very selective with the role she chooses.
Right.
And I think the other half is she's sort of turned off from Hollywood altogether.
Yeah. I'm curious though, because when you do something like this, it's the singing adds such a different element to the acting, and Angelina Jolie is not a singer, but
right. Hopefully, she's lip syncing.
Right. Yeah. So I've only seen good reviews though, so she putting in work.
Then there was some buzz about a film called Cloud. I think this is from Japan. The director is Kiyoshi Kurosawa. And it looks like sort of like an action type film, but it's getting a lot of buzz. And I'm really interested in the films that are coming from from the Asian countries, just because
so
they seem to be more pervasive and just sort of illicit in their storytelling. It's unlike Western storytelling somehow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think another thing is that they do a much better job at world building.
Yeah.
So you're fully immersed in what you're watching. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Another one was, I hope I said this right, Vermiglio.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. And let me see who's in this one. It's a coming of age story, but I believe it's during World War II. So that could catch some buzz. Yes, a remote mountain village. During the 1940s, during World War II. So of course we love a war film or a film set around the Great Wars. So
never getting rid of it.
right. And then the other one I found getting some buzz was Kill the Jockey. Excuse me. And this is a crime drama. I don't know how to pronounce that. But a jockey's pursued by a gangster and pregnant girlfriend. That's basically the premise. But it has to kind of deal in horse racing. So just some titles that kind of caught my interest. Some other movies that are popping up recently. The Order, starring Jude Law and Journey Smollett, is getting some buzz. It's actually about taking down some white supremacist organizations. I love Journey Smollett. I love when she's in anything. Any other ones that you have heard getting some buzz, or you're excited to see?
That one kind of hit the head. The Baby Girl was the one I really saw pushing a lot of stuff because there's another one, and it is Tilda Swinton and Julianne Moore. Let me try to look up.
Oh, is that The End?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's like
It's The Room Next Door.
Oh, The Room Next Door?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure what it's all about, but it's getting a lot of buzz. So, yeah, those are two great actresses. So
we'll definitely, and they stay busy.
Yeah. Oh, and then the last one is Queer with Daniel Craig.
Yes, and that one I think just premiered today, I believe.
Yeah, I've been hearing crazy things about that one. So
yeah, I've seen everything from like him commenting how he wanted the sex scenes to be natural and sensual. So, oh, so you're committing, okay,
right? So, yeah,
interesting. And also, I want to add, I don't know if it's at the festivals, but I want to see The Wasp starring Naomi Harris and our girl from Game of Thrones. I can't remember her name. Natalie Dormer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks very interesting. So yeah, it's soon. The new year will be here, and we'll be getting ready for the Oscars. So hopefully, between now and then, we can see some of these movies.
Right, because right at the turn of the new year, we even have more because Sundance is always in January. So
yeah, they all hit back to back, and people are going to be doing that Oscar push and dump all those movies.
Yeah, always
between October and December.
Yep.
And then, of course, the mainstream ones, Joker, Dula, whatever is coming, and all that stuff. They just revealed that the guy from Industry is allegedly playing Harvey Dent in this Joker. The guy who plays Robert. So I don't know if he'll have a British accent. I doubt it. But that's interesting enough. All right, we'll go ahead and move from our cold open and get into our feature presentation, where we'll be discussing the end of Paramount Plus's Evil. All right, so one of our favorite shows, unfortunately, was canceled by Paramount Plus. Robert and Michelle King's Evil had its series finale, I think, at least 2 weeks ago now or so. after 4 seasons. They had a season finale prepped and finished, and then they were told that they would not be getting renewed, so they rushed 4 extra episodes near the end to sort of give the season sort of like a proper ending, if you will. So what were your thoughts on the way the show came to a conclusion?
I will say the last 4 episodes you could definitely tell were rushed, and I'm not saying that necessarily in a bad way, but you can tell that while there's thought put into it, it wasn't the same time wasn't taken for all the episodes that preceded them. But I will say that it's good to see some storylines come to an end, and one thing I was happy with, and sorry for the spoilers, was that their story didn't just end. Like the assessor program wasn't just over. I was like, okay, so while we may not see them, we can believe that somewhere out there they're still, continuing this. So I thought that was good, and it wasn't really like a sad finale. It wasn't like anybody died or anything like that. But so I thought it was a good close to what was a really, really good series.
Yeah, I agree. I was sad to see it end so soon because the proper season finale, episode 10, was sort of perfect.
Right.
Spoilers, you had Kristen sort of met at the doorstep with her biological son, and whether she was going to accept, the Antichrist or whatever into her home. Right. That would have been a perfect setup for season 5. But unfortunately, we're not going to get it right now.
Yeah. Sure.
But so I was satisfied with the ending. I think a lot of people were expecting some more dread just because the show was definitely dipping that way. But I'm happy it sort of ended in sort of like a positive, sort of hopeful light.
Right.
So what were some of your favorite moments from just these past 4 seasons, whether it's favorite episodes or scenes or characters, guest appearances, whatever?
I'm trying to think. I would say the whole the show did a good job of being like funny while being creepy, and I thought that was funny. Some of the more humorous moments. One of the things that always gets me and got me in this last episode, is that there's this evil network and they're using Zoom. You know what I mean? And then they got demons sitting in on the Zoom, and I just think that's so funny to me. But I really, for some reason, I really liked the storyline. I think it was in season 3 or season 2 when Lexi, the youngest one, went through her whole thing where she's like growing a tail and she was going to be like this evil one, and Leland was being creepy and reaching out to her through this game. And I thought that was really well done and kind of unnerving in a way. So I think that's one of my favorite moments of the show.
Yeah, I would say that stands out just because it was a way to involve the children,
right,
in a sense where it wasn't too creepy, but you got to learn their personalities. And I think that was another great part of the show. We had these 4 girls kind of age through each season.
Right, yeah.
And they had distinct personalities. They weren't like just kind of throwaway characters since they were minors. They had a tapestry in the show. And yeah, the Lexi thing was interesting because you definitely felt panic for her and the family. I will always go back to the episode Cop, where we had Kristen basically confess to the murder of that prisoner guy, and then she just sort of got let go because her cop was a friend, and it sort of spoke on the privilege she had compared to her male counterparts who are both men of color. Like they couldn't even get away with like a speeding ticket in that episode. I think I joined that episode just because the Kings do a great job of capturing societal ills with their shows, but with the humor and the horror, like it all seemed to work perfectly. That episode, and then the episode where David was in the hospital and that nurse who came back later.
Yes.
That was crazy.
That was really crazy. I remember when we talked about that. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, the fact that they brought her back in later
Right.
seasons, like that was just that's such care and delicacy with the writing.
Yeah.
But that episode was so freaky because I literally thought he was a goner. Like, I said,
Yeah.
what hospital is this? Where is he going? What's happening?
Yeah. But no,
Yeah.
there's so many good ones, and um, the whole thing with Kristen's egg, how that all changed. That whole lab they had, that was creepy too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just because they couldn't find information, and she's like, "Well, what's going on?" Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
That
a
was
lot.
very insidious. It was scary in a way of like these things could happen. And that's my favorite type of
Right,
sort of horror. Not
right,
like slasher movies or monster things, but just like the mix, the grain of like fiction and nonfiction. And some of the
exactly,
storylines were very
exactly.
terrifying. And the way they were able to explain some of the terror with like the psychological examinations, making it
Right.
that I think that was the best parts. And I love the characters on here. Andrea Martin, as Sister Andrea, was one of the
Yeah, she's so good.
standouts. So good. Her interactions with the demons, like,
Even
were
this
some of the
last episode, I mean, the finale. Yeah,
yeah, great comic. She has great comic timing, comedic
yeah,
timing. And then again, her interactions with David, like the show knew when to be funny, and then knew also when to be poignant and sort of
yeah. Deep.
addressing its addressing the topical stuff about faith and belief and stuff like that without preaching to the
And that
viewer.
was another one I forgot about. And it's oh, they go to that weird place, and it's Father Frank. And remember, he's trying to reach back to the other father.
Mm-hmm.
They're like in this big. They're going like this tube, and I think, does Father Frank actually die, or something happens where they like? I think they bring him back to life.
Yeah, he was going to try to find the
Yes.
father that was killed or something like that,
Yeah.
and he like died for a second, then came back or something like that
And
in
he
that
like,
tube.
and he had like a new lust for life. He was just this different person and everything, and it was really interesting. But like you just said, it was
Mm-hmm.
about faith and belief, and um, yeah, no, there's so many great characters, and even though he was on I guess the wrong side, Leland is probably my favorite character in the show. Just
Yeah,
'cause-
Leland was a great adversary because they try to sometimes shows make like the adversary or villain like super evil and like
right,
almost like inhuman, but he was human as well, and he was just as clumsy and silly.
and and I think that's what made it good because, like you said, one he was evil in the adversary, but at the same time he was still coming over to their house because he was dating their grandmother, and like he would just show up. But then, like you said, as much as he wanted to be this evil guy and push this evil agenda, he was a loser. He never did anything right. It always went wrong. So it was
Right.
really
He
funny.
was just basically a klutz, and
Yeah.
getting his backstory this season
Right.
was
Right.
another plus, and I'm sure we'll explore that more given
Right.
if we had other seasons. So what would you have hoped to have seen in the fifth season?
Oh, I think a continuation of the accessor program. Um, it, and kind of, I wouldn't say a battle, but I don't know, maybe a little bit more confrontation between David and like the Vatican. I think that was already
Yeah.
coming, but
Yeah, because he was very rogue on sort of what they wanted to happen.
right, right.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think just doing what they do, but in different parts of the world, would have made for a great fifth season. So
Yeah, or even around the country. Like they never
around
really
the country,
traveled
that's very true.
away from the northeastern area, except for a few episodes. But yeah, that would have been interesting, and to see how Kristen moved with this child or whatever. And I think we would have seen more of Andy and not less, but maybe that storyline would have taken the more cautious steps to like
Right,
their separation
because
if that were to happen.
that was so strange. His leaving, just the episode
Hmm.
was crazy too with that
Yeah,
empty. Yeah, but
yeah.
yeah, it was just so sudden. It's like, what? Like, okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if the show will be saved or not. I think it does. It performs pretty well in streaming on Netflix.
Yeah.
And you have people like Stephen King trying to champion, saying, bring this back. So maybe we'll find it again later on. And
Yeah.
they're assessing
Maybe.
in Rome, or they've been in Rome, they're back in the States or whatnot. But I'd love to see more of the show. I definitely think I'll do a rewatch sometime soon, just because it's such a unique show, and I'm glad we got it for how long we did before.
It got, yeah.
Yeah, before platforms decided to cancel everything left and right.
Because it was, and it's such a. It's not always that you get casts that click like that. You
Right.
know, I honestly, I think this is the first thing I've seen. Katya, is it Herbers or Kerbers?
I think it's Herber's.
First thing I've seen her in since Manhattan.
Right.
I'm
Right.
sure she's been in other things, but you know, yeah, she just kind of showed her talent in this. So hopefully we'll see her in more now.
Yeah. And let me Avid Sif, is that his name? He's always been in things, but he's never really had such a lead role, and it was good to see him because he's funny, he can do drama and everything. And I think it was very important that they had a black priest cast in this, because you don't really see. I mean, black Catholics exist, but not not in like the mainstream
No.
television stuff like that, with such a different perspective from religion. You usually get the black pastor that's very Protestant, Baptist, things like that, but not something like this. So yeah, I'll miss the show, definitely.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah. So if you want to catch Evil now, I think seasons 1 and 2 may be on Netflix, and then all 4 seasons are on Paramount Plus. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to get into our streams of the week. All right, so last week I did some movie watching, which is rare. I'm trying to increase my my Letterboxd watchings. I did watch The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. It was pretty good, based on the novel. And it's sort of like, it reminds you of those 90s movies, sort of like a Fried Green Tomatoes or a Now and Then, where you have, a group of women friends who have grown up together, and they just sort of chronicle their trials and tribulations, in the past and future. So it was like a dramedy. But it was pretty good. The cast was strong. I guess, as I mentioned, Audrey Ellis Taylor, Sanaa Lathan, Uzo Aduba were in it. And it's on Hulu. I gave it about 3 stars because there's not really wrong with it. It's very serviceable film. It could have come out in theaters and been a hit, but it was on Hulu. So,
all right, yeah.
And then I finally watched Challengers. It's currently on MGM Plus, with Zendaya and I don't know those white boys' names. I'm sorry.
It's funny you say that. One of them is Josh O'Connor, because he's in the movie that I'm going to watch, and then the other one I don't know as well. Or not a movie I'm going to watch. One of the movies we're going to talk about, but I think it's Mike Feist.
Mike Feist. Okay, yeah. And Josh O'Connor. Okay, I recognize that name from The Crown. I believe he's played young Prince William or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie was pretty good. I could get why it got the hype. I love the sort of the writing in it, the way it sort of jumped from different timelines to sort of explore these three's relationship, how it developed. It definitely again felt like a film of another time. I mean, the 90s were kind of full of these sort of like erotic, sexualized sort of dramas. It's quite funny as well, and everyone did pretty good. So I definitely recommend it. It was a fun time.
That's good. Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, and then I finished Average Joe season 1 on Netflix. This show's definitely, I didn't expect it to be as good as it is. I think it could have been shorter. It's 10 episodes. I think it would have been great if it was 8. Yeah. But That's neither here nor there, but it's a very good vehicle to show off some impressive acting from Dion Cole, who we usually see in comedic roles. Also, Malcolm Bartlett, who he does drama and comedy, but I think he's most known for comedy. He was in Timeless and a whole bunch of other stuff. He's always that black guy in a white show.
Yeah, he always just shows up. Absolutely.
But he was great in this. Basically, it's about a guy who finds out that his father was a drug mule for a Russian mob, and when he dies, he's searching for the money he stole, and they're after him because his father stole this money. So it's very interesting. And it's been renewed for a second season, so season 2 will be coming. I'm guessing it will come to BT Plus first, and maybe eventually get to Netflix for everyone else to see. So, Average Joe was decent.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So what I was going to say was that Challengers, the director of that, Luca Guadagnino, I can't pronounce his last name, is the same one who's doing Queer. And he also did Call Me by Your Name and Bones and All. So he really loves these weird relationship things. That's kind of like his vibe. But okay, so I'll get into what I watched. And like I said, I watched a movie with Josh O'Connor, and I watched a movie called La Chimera. And it means the what does it mean? Something dream, the impossible dream. And so in this movie, he is a artifact stealer. He's been in prison, gets released, he goes to Italy, and he steals old artifacts. He digs them up, and he sells them to make money, and that's how he lives. And while he's doing this, he gets involved kind of with like his ex-girlfriend's family, and it's just kind of the story of him kind of trying to redeem himself a little bit and just live life now that his ex-girlfriend is dead, and he's trying to kind of figure out like what happens next. But it was really good. I enjoyed it. It wasn't super long, so I think it actually came out the end of last year, and so it just hit Hulu maybe a few weeks ago. So yeah, pretty good. And then I finally got around to watching Love Lies Bleeding, and this is the film starring Kristen Stewart. And I'm not mistaken, did she direct this? I want to say she did.
Oh, I don't know.
No, it's Rose Glass is who directed it. I thought for some reason Kristen Stewart did. But pretty good cast. Kristen Stewart, Ed Harris, Jenna Malone, Dave Franco, and Katie O'Brien, who is probably the person people would at least be familiar with. But it was decent. It got a lot of praise, and as I was watching it, I was just like, okay. But but it was good. Kristen Stewart is kind of she's a daughter of this notorious bad guy in this town, and she works at a gym which her father owns, and Katie O'Brien's character Jackie is a bodybuilder, wants to make it big, and so of course the two of them eventually meet, and then this kind of family crime story unravels, and that's where shit starts to hit the fan. But it was decent. It was just a little. There was almost too much going on. Like the story could have been a lot more simple and would have made for a better movie, in my opinion. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good.
Okay, alrighty. And then what we're currently watching, I'm enjoying the second season of Pachinko on Apple TV. We're two episodes in. I can't really explain the plot. It's just you basically explore a Korean woman's life from young adulthood to present day, like 1989 in Japan and America. You kind of explore her life through her other family members, like in the past. We're now in 1945, around World War II, and the bombs have just hit Osaka. And then in the present, 89, her grandson is working in like corporate America, Japan, or whatever, and he sort of was fired because he refused to allow his company to buy this woman's land. And it's very interesting. It focuses more on sort of the cultural aspects and the history. Because for me, watching the show, I never knew about the the Japanese coming to Korea and basically placing Koreans in internment camps. Like I had no idea any about that history. So you have like even to this day there's schisms between those two communities and ethnicities, and it's a multilingual show as well. It's in Korean, Japanese, and American, so the subtitles will be on. But it's very interesting. Great performances from the young actors, or all the actors. This is where I first saw Anasawa, who starred in Shogun. And then you have the grandmother from Minari as present day, the main present day character, Yoon Young Jun. So it's if you think of This Is Us on like a global scale,
right?
Kind of, sort of, but it's a very good show. So yeah, and then I've been watching Bel Air.
Yeah.
There's only 2 episodes left. They were dropping 3 episodes each week, which is kind of insane.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same. I mean, if you know Fresh Prince and you've watched the first season or a few episodes, you know they've taken like the stories from the sitcom and sort of dramatized them. This season, Carlton's come home from rehab and he's still kind of struggling, as any addict would, still kind of struggling with that. Will has kind of come to terms with his absentee father, and both of them are working together in this like entrepreneurial project for Black business leaders. Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil sort of had like a marital issues. Ashley wants a band. They kind of dropped the ball on Ashley's character. She didn't really have a storyline this season, and maybe it's because she's like the youngest, but it's like, give her something to do. And then Hillary broke up with Jazz last season, and she's back with her athlete boyfriend, and they're supposed to get married now. So yeah, with only 2 episodes left, I can't believe the season went that fast. I hope they got renewed for a 4th season, or it would feel sort of all for naught if they dropped all these episodes so quickly like that. But yeah, that's what I've been watching right now. And then for the next week, what are you looking forward to watching?
So a movie just dropped on Hulu, which is Kinds of Kindness, and this is a Yorgos Lanthimos film, and he is known for Dogtooth, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, Lobster, and most recently starring Emma Stone, which this movie will also star Emma Stone, Poor Things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll check that out. It is a long movie, nearly 3 hours, so I will be watching it in parts. Yeah. But we'll see. I like his stuff. It's always weird. And then The Watchers came out, and this is on HBO Max. This is M. Night Shyamalan starring Dakota Fanning. And I'm not really sure what it's about, which is pretty much every M. Night movie. So I'll definitely check that out and probably be confused, but enjoy it all the same. And then on Monday, September 9th, which is my sister's birthday, but more importantly, one of my favorite shows, My Brilliant Friend, comes back on HBO for the 4th and final season. And this is an Italian language drama based on a series of books that were really popular through like the 2010s. And it's been incredible. And it's one of those shows that if it weren't in Italian, would be popular all across. You'd be hearing it the same way you heard about Succession and shows like that. But because it's Italian, I think that's why a lot of Americans don't watch it. But I'm glad it got another season. And so hopefully it gets a proper send off. So.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that when I was waiting for another show to come on, and I was surprised to see the time jump because I know the rest of the seasons they were like teenagers. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Right. Yep. That was a big part. So they just took them from, I think it ends when they're in their early 20s is when season 3. And so now they're like grown women, like maybe late 30s. So yeah,
that's very interesting. Yeah. Before I get into my watches, I forgot to mention industry this week. What episode are we on? 5, right? 5? I'm tripping. Anyway, this week's episode was a bottleneck episode where they focused on one character. Rishi, phenomenal. If you enjoyed Uncut Gems, you'll enjoy this episode, because that's basically what it was. It was like,
oh Jesus,
industry meets Uncut Gems, but with a much better ending. So definitely get into it. And they saw, I think this is episode 4, because they saw an increase in their ratings with episode 3. So the show is getting a much needed buzz, and I expect Emmys for next year, definitely.
Well, that's good, because I finally finished. I'm done with season 2, so now I can just catch up on this season. And I accidentally heard that I think it's season or episode 3 or 2 that Harper goes off. So I'm not reading anything more. I've just heard that
just wait. Yeah, you'll see. Yeah. But yeah, industry is on one. Okay, for my list, the next 2 weeks, September 4th, the 4th season of Slow Horses comes to Apple TV. Stars Gary Oldman and a bunch of other up and coming British actors. Spy, espionage in the UK. Very good, very solid show. I think he's nominated this year for his role on Slow Horses.
That's good.
Then we have what's his name? Jeff Bridges in season 2 of The Old Man drops on the 12th. I was so surprised by this show because didn't know what to expect. I actually wasn't going to watch. And I eventually watched it sort of like months after it dropped, and it was really good. We're going to see more of him and John Lithgow this season, sort of team up per se. And then on the 13th, Natasha Rothwell from Insecure and White Lotus, she's starring in her own series on Hulu called How to Die Alone. She plays a flight, not attendant, but a flight, the people that work outside on the planes, basically.
Okay.
I don't know what you call them. But she's sort of like her love life is kind of down. She's kind of suffering with depression or whatever, but, a near fatal death experience sort of rejuvenates her zeal for life. So it's sort of like a dramedy, but I think she started on the show way before the pandemic. And it's just now coming out. So definitely looking forward to that to see how it is.
Yeah.
And that concludes this week's episode of It's a Streamable Life podcast. You can find us on social at AS Live Podcast. And stay tuned for next week when we will be discussing the 2024 Emmys. So that should definitely be interesting. Until next time, keep on streaming.
Peace.